Well, we already started, so time to
What?
check.
Have we already started?
Yep. You
Uh,
ready?
I got to make sure I look back up at this green thing. How am I doing tilt wise? Do you want more? No, we want more like hat and body. There we go. Right? Get my
More hat body.
My Tom Jones on for few ladies from the 70s, little Tom Jones action.
Maybe that's why our viewership is
Dwindling. A real quick aside, just for the folks at home and for you, because I don't think I've ever shared this with you. I worked at Moby Disc Records for 10 or 11 years, which was a record shop where we sold CDs and stuff like that. And they were alternative and kind of cool. And in their employee handbook, when they actually talked about the dress code, there was specifically one rule, and it said no Tom Joneses. And that meant specifically you couldn't have unbuttoned shirts really low with like billowing chest hair, and probably a gold medallion would have made it even worse. So that
oh
was
my gosh.
a very clear rule. No Tom Jones, because
No Tom Joneses.
Tom Jones had like, what is it, like the dark forest of Germany, like he had it like going on. And the ladies liked it back then, but times have changed.
Times
And,
have definitely
I'm not so sure. It may come back around, but
I don't
you're not so sure?
I don't know. Well, I think everyone's got different preferences.
Everything cycles, though. Everything cycles. You know how I feel about, like, ladies started going with these high-waisted shorts. High-waisted shorts have gone like that's become the whole thing. And that's like, my grandma was like on the forefront of that trend like 80 years ago. So things come around, right? Things come around. Anyway, any of you ladies who like the high-waisted shorts, rock on, do your thing. I'm just poking a little fun. So.
Dance, Sean, dance. Dance. Dance, Sean, dance.
All right. Come on, baby. Saturday. Episode number 50.
All right, I'm gonna do a fade.
Nice fade there, lady.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we got ourselves a big. We hit the big 50 today.
Yeah.
Can you believe we're 2 episodes away from a year?
It's definitely 2 episodes away.
This show's outlasted some marriages.
Although, yeah, that's true. Although we may have been doing this for longer than a year because some weeks we've missed. We've missed a couple weeks here and there.
Oh, have we?
Yeah. Occasionally, like just little things. So we probably are coming close to a year, if not a year already.
Okay. And then prior to the show, of course, I was doing all of the hard work of actually writing out the Q&As and all that stuff, which what's that? Like, literally, I was getting like carpal tunnel syndrome and everything. It was terrible.
Wow. That was the whole reason why we talked about doing this Q&A on the video, was to give you a break from all that craziness.
Save me a hospital visit. So a real quick thing. I know you guys are used to seeing me scruffy, but like I'm extra scruffy. Reason being, we had a leave it to NOLA to be like third world country style. We had a boiling, what are they? I don't know what they call it, Laura, but we had a water alert, some kind of like the water pressure was diminished, which, I don't know too much about it, but what I gather is that like stuff that isn't supposed to get into the water supply when the pressure gets low gets into the water supply. And I didn't get the memo until the memo went out on like I want to say like Wednesday night, and I didn't get it until like Thursday. I think I talked to Laura. I was in Walmart like shopping for a lamp, and I was like, there's a water thing, and it's been on for like multiple hours, and I've been drinking gallons and gallons of this. Like I'm starting to glow green, I'm sure. And, so anyways, they finally lifted it. I just found out once again, just recently from a friend. So like they say you can shower, but you can't drink any of the water, and you can't like brush your teeth with it. And so it gave me a good excuse to escape the shower. Anyways, or escape. I did shower, but to escape the dealing with this. So that's cool.
You showered.
What's that?
I said, are you sure you showered?
I did shower, but I did it tight-lipped, very tight-lipped shower. And then like, it's a weird thing, almost like you're camping, to be like toothbrush with like bottled water. And, like,
yeah.
Very like peculiar thing.
That's very weird.
Anyway, so a couple things before we jump into the show. And like I watch Gary Vee's show all the time, so I always want to say, what are you adding? She's adding effects. More. I can see it pop up over here, so gotta lean. And the maturity level's going through the roof. Here we go. She's feeling a little devilish.
I thought I was going to be able to add it to you, but
I'm glad that you
can't.
I'm glad that you can. Yeah, so I've been watching A Devilish Dog. I've trained a few of those. So while Laura gets into some important stuff here, so we got kind of so bozo. So we got some important stuff going on, right? Besides your new look, we got some important stuff going on. I'm flying back. Oh, the monocle, always the monocle with you. It's such a clever, sexy look for you. I'm surprised more women don't use it. So checking on the dog. Okay, so anyways, guys, I'm dragging this out. So let me boogie on through this. So I'm in NOLA, right? Laura's in LA. We got the DVD. We're working on finishing it up. There's a couple of things that we wanted to add to it, and so unfortunately, I'm flying out. When do I fly out, Laura? Monday? I think Monday night.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, I fly out Monday night. Probably a red-eye crazy thing. Come in. We've got a handful of dogs to work with, and we've got to reshoot. So I'm just checking on dogs. We've got to reshoot like 4 or 5 hours, like a half-day shoot to add some stuff. We really want this to be right for everybody. We want to make sure there's no guesswork and no one's struggling with anything. And so we just found some things we really wanted to include. So we got the whole team back together. I'm flying out one day, and then I fly back here. So that should be what we call a low-stress event. That'll be interesting. So we got that coming up. And then last night we had a fire here at the loft. I had to evacuate the dogs. It was a bunch of craziness, really like pretty scary stuff. Bottom floor is filled with smoke. That was no fun. And, other than that, I've just been, besides the fires and had a little bit of a weird run-in with somebody when I was doing a late potty walk with the dogs the other night. That was, a little bit creepy, but we're surviving, hanging in there. And where was I going with that? I think that's it. I think we need to get into the show before we put everybody straight to bed. What do you say? Are you ready?
Go for it.
All right. You gonna give me any horns or anything I need?
I can't give you. You can do it, but.
That's great to hear. Hey, everybody, it's Sean from The Good Dog.
Wait.
And it's Sean from The Good Dog. That's me, Sean O'Shea, green and yellow. And this, other side of the screen, is the lovely Laura Morgan. That's great. That's very nice. Lovely. Awesome. And all this great stuff that hopefully you guys can see is the Good Dogs Q&A Saturday, episode number Big 50. Ooh, look at that color. Very nice. I'm gonna fix my thing here. Very nice. Nice work, lady.
Thank you.
headed for big things in the creative art design department of some studio.
It's a bit of an upgrade from last week.
What's that?
It's a bit of an upgrade from last week.
It's just typical for our show. They just get better every time. Are you feeling under what the pressure, under the pressure of water, and you're snorkeling? Okay, so
are you ready?
I am, Lassie. All right, so let's get into question number 1, and let's see if we can retain just a tiny bit of our our
dignity
and dignity. Yeah, you ready? Can't see anything.
Hold on.
Get it close. Get it close. There you go. There you go.
Okay. Question number 1. Dominic asks.
Dom from Canada.
All right. Dominic asks, hey, Monsieur Sean and Madame Laura, great show as always.
Did you say Monster Sean?
Monsieur.
Monsieur.
Oh, Monsieur. It's okay. He's just a cold-blooded human.
Oh dear.
All right. I thought, well, I didn't think this, but I did say the other day that human's blood is cold.
You did. You did. I mean, it was an intriguing conversation.
Hey guys, keep that up. The good show. So besides duration work and obedience work, how would you work on calming a state of mind for a hyper dog without having to do place or crate?
Oh, Dom, those are my go-tos, buddy. Okay, so I got a couple suggestions for you. So any place that you see excitement, like this is old school, and I know you're a super knowledgeable guy, so I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but like sometimes just the art of patience. Like my guy Manny, he's really, really, really excited about food. And so what I've been doing, like here in New Orleans with him, because typically when I'm in LA, I don't have time to do some of this work that I need to be doing with him. So what I do is I put his food down first, and then he's in a down, and then I get everybody else's food ready. And then I release the other guys, and he's got to sit there because he's sitting there like this, right, jonesing. And I just sit and I watch him. I just wait. And I wait, and boy, I'd love to be doing a million other things, but I sit and I wait, and then finally, he puts his head down and relaxes, and then I reward him with that, with a very calm, Manny, come, and then break, right? Typically, what we do at the spot in LA is he's in a downstay, and I just say break, and that's all on me. It's my fault, and that creates excitement because I'm releasing him while he's already pepped up. So that's that one's on me. It's not, that's why I'm tweaking it. So any place you've got excitement, thresholds, crate, food, toys, any chance that you can condition the dog over and over and over again to wait, slow down, and calm. I know you've heard this a million times, but that calmness gets him what he wants. Typically, it's a patience game, and that's what I would be doing. I would just be like really waiting him out, seeing if that gives you any value. Slow the walks down. A lot of people with high energy dogs just try and like wear them out, and not that exercise isn't good, and we'll talk about exercise in a second, but like what I do with these fast kind of like minded dogs is I slow them down and I walk really slow. It's really hard work for them mentally, and it slows the body down and it slows the mind down. I find it to be super duper valuable. Also give relaxed commands, any kind of interaction with the dog, giving commands or anything of that nature should be very conscious, and it should be like, come, place, down. Good, right? If you've got a dog that's zingy, then you need to do the work of like pulling him in that direction of being like calm, cool, and relaxed. And a lot of that you can get just by way of how you deliver the information. You just pep it up just a little bit and you're going to get a lot more lift off. So that's another thing that's more handler related, just being really, really conscious of that. And then of course, like chilled, relaxed, non-stressed humans in the dog's life in general, right? So if I have you go live with like your crazy, you know, like say you got a crazy family of 20, and I said, Dom, you got to go back and live with them. And they're all stressed out and they yell and they fight and there's weirdness going on and it's just like always tense. You're going to be the same thing. Now, if I send you over and like invite you over to my loft of luxury and relaxation and quiet, then eventually you would take on that same vibe of being like laid back and chilled out, right? So influence of environment and people and everything else going on is going to have a huge impact on that dog. So you could do all this great training stuff, but if the dog is living in an environment where people are edgy, like type A personalities, go, 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 and that stuff rubs off. If they've got kids that are constantly on the go, that stuff rubs off. If they got another dog that's on the go, that stuff rubs off. So I'd say like you've got to be pretty conscious and pretty tuned into environment and how that environment could be affecting the dog. Maybe it's not, might not have anything to do with it, but it's one of the things that I'd take a look at. And then of course, lots of exercise, but exercise only combined with you know, a commensurate amount of like duration work and mind work, you know, getting the dog to really work and do mental exercises, things that are challenging for them. So lots of good exercise, but also like don't just lean on the exercise like most people. Like you said earlier, duration work. I know you said beyond that, but I'm going to add it to it. So that's what I would suggest for that. I think if you put all those things together, you have a pretty good shot at like finding some solutions that would be helpful for that dog. And a lot of them are owner handler centric to make that happen. Hopefully that helps, buddy. And nice to ask a question. I don't think Dom's ever asked a question before.
No? Yes, he has.
Has he?
Yeah. He's called you Monsieur before.
Monsoon.
What is the pronunciation?
Monsieur.
Oh. It's like Or's divorce.
It's like Or's divorce. What did you take? What did you take in college? What language class?
Spanish.
Okay, so if Dom was from the land of Mexico or Spain, you'd be in like Flint. You'd be sounding great, and I'd be struggling.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're going to touch on that monsoon. We're going to let you go on that. All right, let's move on because that's a good one. Let's rock and roll. Closer. There you go. There you go.
Question number 2. Kathleen asks.
Yeah.
Kathleen asks, what do you do when your dog shuts down as an avoidance technique? They stop and refuse to move or do anything. Even though they have successfully done the technique before, they just stop and refuse to move. Sean, where'd you go?
It's freezing in here. It's like a meat locker.
Oh, okay.
So like when we have direct sunlight coming in here, like the place gets toasty and you need a lot of AC. But when the sun sets, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
A little chilly. Okay, so
Kathleen.
I've got her name right here. Thank you very much. And I keep looking at you down here, so stop looking at me. So okay, so dog shuts down. So I guess the big question, Kathleen, like, and this is a hard one without me being able to like see your dog and see what you're doing. There's so much nuance and detail in this. But I'd be really curious to get your honest opinion on whether the dog is protesting. It sounds like, if I'm not mistaken, it sounds like what you're saying is that the dog knows this stuff and is protesting not wanting to do it, right? So if you've got like a bratty situation and you're very clear on the dog, you're very clear on his attitude, you're very clear on his relationship, and you've got a bratty thing that's unequivocal, you're like, man, this guy is like, he's full of energy, he's not worn out, and he's rolling over and biting the leash, or he's just shutting down or doing something like that, then that's something that I would probably push through, address, and probably add a little firmness to say like, hey, this is non-negotiable. But then of course you also have to ask yourself, have you been doing a session that's too long? Have you been working his butt too long? Have you been like really like pushing? And now he's at a point where he's just like, I've got no more gas in the tank and this is really a drag and really a bummer. So that would be something that I would be wanting to take a really close look at as well. Let's see. And if you haven't been making unfair demands, you know, kind of what I was saying about the too long sessions, if you're doing like short sessions and you know the dog is like physically fit and, you know, you haven't kind of blown his mind by the duration of the work you're doing, then that shouldn't be a problem. I also said, you know, I wrote some notes here, and I was just, you know, saying, you know, be sure the dog isn't like, whenever I hear shut down, the two things come to my mind is like bratty protest. I can't do this one. I guess I can. It's not foul. So bratty protest or confused, freaked out dog, right? And they're both really different, and they both need different approaches. And without seeing, it's really hard for me to say. So this is where you're going to have to really make your call on this about like reading the personality and the intent and who the dog is that you're working with. And if it feels like you're being really objective and you've been really fair and you've seen, and here's a really good point, you've seen, if I do say so myself, if you've seen the dog be bratty, pushy, stubborn, disobedient, snotty in other contexts, then that information has to be brought to bear on your current and future decisions, right? I always tell everybody to be a sleuth. So if you're being sleuthy, and you've been watching this dog and you've seen this dog be a jackass in a lot of other contexts, and there's probably a good chance that that's what's going on. If you've seen this dog be really biddable and want to work and be happy to like do stuff with you, and then all of a sudden he's shutting down, you might be getting overwhelmed, you might be getting freaked out, you might be challenging too much, you might be pushing a session too long. So I think I pretty much covered all the stuff. I also said, make sure you're using the right tools, right? So if you do have either one of those cases, bratty or unsure, if you're using like a slip lead or a flat buckle collar, you really empower the dog to follow whatever that tendency is, whether it's bratty or concern or overwhelm, and then they can get locked in that. So the other part of this would be making sure that the tools you're using are ones that are going to empower you to help move that dog through whatever that problem is. Of course, doing it in a fair way. So that's a part of it too. Obviously, these are challenging dynamics in a question and answer format because we only get a little bit of information. We don't see the dog. I don't see the tools. I don't see your demeanor. I don't see the approach. I don't see what you're doing. So there's a lot of guesswork involved. So I try and put out really general kind of guidelines of things to take a look at. And I think hopefully you can go back through this question and listen to it again and listen to the answers. Hopefully there's enough stuff there for you to kind of like, you know, check the boxes of like, oh yeah, he is bratty all the time. Like he's, you know, biting the leash and he's doing this stuff. So that's probably what I've got going on versus he's the sweetest dog in the world. But when I like do this, he shuts down and freaks out. That's probably a dog who's overwhelmed. So get sleuthy about it. Hang on, sleuthy, hang on. And so I've had really bad jokes and see what you can come up with. Hopefully that helps a little bit. And then most importantly, does Laura Morgan even know what hang on, sleuthy, hang on is a reference to?
Hang on, sleuthy, sleuthy, hang on.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Was that a Roger song?
Question number 3.
Question number 3 is, was that a Roger song?
Jennifer asks, let me take my beard off.
You should say, Blade, like me.
Okay, Jennifer says, hey guys, quick question about my dog Bruno, who's e-collar trained. Bruno, loud. Bruno can work in the presence of others' dogs without a problem. Heel, recall, down, etc. The issue I've noticed recently is when I give him the release command, break, in a calm, monotone voice, he rushes up to nearby dogs who are off-leash and inappropriately greets them. He runs with the other dogs full tilt right to their face, and luckily there have been no problems. However, I'm uncomfortable with the way he greets the dogs. He does this behavior when meeting any dog. I can recall him back to me, no problem, but I'm wanting to teach him how to properly meet other dogs politely, or what I can do to teach him how to properly, calmly greet other dogs. I don't want him running at them full speed. Thanks. It's a great question. I actually
That's a great question.
love the answer to this one. I mean,
For yourself?
for a certain pig.
Certain pig? Oh, Hercules. Stop being so piggy. Okay, so here's a quick thing. So this goes back to like that same concept we talk a lot about, and I think it's in another answer here as well, is like, do we manage the dogs or do we ask the dogs to do better work on their own? And that's a fundamental ideological, I think, shift or difference with a lot of trainers. And some trainers, because they just feel more comfortable with that. They don't want to correct dogs. They want to just kind of guide them and give them information, or give them, what's the term? Give them incompatible behaviors with what they're doing. They'll go that route. That's not our route though. So what I would do is, the cool thing is your dog's e-collar trained. So you're like 99% to paradise land, right? So here's the thing. Rather than recalling your dog away, which is just going to manage, right? You're managing. You're pulling them away, and trainers will tell you, as long as you do that enough times, eventually he won't care. I haven't found that to be the case, and it doesn't sound like you're finding that to be the case either. So here's the deal. You release your dog to go. He's got his e-collar on, and as soon as you see like intensity, like bounding towards another dog, exuberance, you know what I mean? All the trouble signs of like, that guy's going in like, you know, I've got such a great graphic, but I wish I could share it with you guys. It's, it's the Kool-Aid, you know, the Kool-Aid guy, Laura?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That breaks through the wall.
Breaks through the wall. Yeah, yeah.
But he's riding on a wrecking ball, and it says, "I came in like a wrecking ball." It's super awesome. It's all over Facebook. So if you see that, right? If you see your dog turning into like Miley Cyrus and he's gonna go in like a wrecking ball, then here's what you do, right? All jokes aside, dog, you take the leash off, your dog starts moving towards another dog with a lot of intensity, a lot of intent. Just tap the button a couple times, right? Not tap the button at like necessarily mind-blowing levels, but start a little low, but move quick, because you only have a few moments. But don't start to where he's like, but just enough to get like, say his working level, not working level, but say his like correction level for heel is like 6 to 10. This might be like a 15 or a 20, right? He takes off, tap, tap, and all of a sudden, you don't have to say anything, right? Just tap, tap, and it checks him in. He's like, oh, I got to slow down. I'm too crazy, right? It just helps monitor that like exuberance, right? And if he continues to move towards that dog with that same exuberance, those levels are going to go up, and I'm going to tap, and I'm going to tap until my dog goes, I'm going to slow down and chill out. Now, say you manage to do that and you cultivate a really nice like approach. Your dog comes up, he's not being like a bozo. Laura, you could cue your little clown thing here. He's not being a bozo, he's not being silly or crazy or anything like that. But as soon as he closes the distance and gets really close, which is the same thing, he jumps on the dog, mounts the dog, puts a paw over the dog, gets pushy, gets in his face, any of that stuff, just correct. Right? Just correct. You don't have to say anything. You can be 25 feet away. But here's the thing. Once again, don't correct high. We don't want to startle the dog straight away. What we want to do is get his attention. Like they always say in like e-collar manuals, you know, not to use e-collars for dog aggression and things like that. And that's typically because people will put an e-collar on a dog aggressive dog, send him around another dog, and then light him up for misbehaving. The dog doesn't understand what the e-collar pressure is. thinks the other dog's hurting him, is startled, freaked out, and then dog fight ensues. Your dog's pattern and conditioned to the e-collars, so you got a whole different gig going on. But once again, I don't want to startle him, right? I don't want to hit him at like 60 and go like, you'll never do that again. And he does like a vocalization and jumps, and then the other dog's like, what the hell's wrong with you? And then like some trouble ensues. So instead, stop him on his approach, or slow him down, I should say, on his approach with a couple taps at valuable levels. And then as he gets, and like I said, don't recall him, just tap, just to slow him down. As he gets there, if he makes any knuckle-headed moves, I mean, and just be pretty ruthless with this. Like a paw on the back, no. Mounting, no. Getting in the other dog's face and tense, head over the dog's neck, the back of the dog's neck, anything like that. No, all that stuff is like fight precursors and bad juju. So when you see that, correct with a tap. And if you correct at 20 and your dog doesn't change, come up a little bit, tap again, but do it quick. You only have moments, so you got to really move on that stuff, right? 20, bang, doesn't happen. 30, bang, your dog steps away and relaxes, right? And what he's going to connect is that it's not that he can't play with dogs, it's that he can't play with dogs like a jackass, right? He can't play with dogs in this overly exuberant fashion. And we do it all the time. Uh-oh, I just lost you, Laura. Okay, yeah, so we had a little bit of like a tech glitch there. I think Cujo ate through the cables. Anyways, so any kind of tomfoolery, right? Posturing, getting in the dog's face, head over the dog's neck in some stiff like tomfoolery stuff, being too forceful with like sniffing like genitals or the rear, anything like that, paw on the back, mounting, all the usual stuff. Just tap and correct. Find the level he cares about, not the level that makes him like jump out of his skin and burst into flames, but enough that he goes, man, that stuff, like that paw on the back, it's uncomfortable. The head over the shoulders, it's uncomfortable. It's so simple. Once you do it a few times, you're going to be like, I can't believe how easy this is. It's fantastic. So that's the answer to that. And report back and let us know, because I think you're going to be excited how easy it is to make this stuff work better for you guys. Cool?
Nice.
Cool.
All right. Question number 4. Amy says, really interested in your training of polar bear with the horses, and I have a question that is related. My dog Callie has gotten pretty good around them. This song gets louder and louder. Has gotten pretty good around them unless one of the horses gets its energy up. That's when Callie takes off and tries to take the horse's tail and hang on for the ride. I don't want to make her completely adverse to horses like what you did with polar bear, because I want to take her trail riding. But obviously this is a dangerous and unacceptable behavior. Is it then still best to use high-level corrections when she wants to go after a horse? I have to have her on leash with a e-collar because once she gets after them, she ignores the corrections. Thanks, you guys rock. Where'd you go?
I'm always just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
All right.
Here's the thing. So I want you to answer. I've got a couple. Uh-oh, she's back with the effects again.
Go ahead.
So I want you to jump in, and I've got a couple notes, but I want you to answer primarily what you did. She wants to know what you did with polar bear, but before
we talked about it last week. I think she's referring to that. We talked about what we did. I think what she's asking is like how to make it so it's not
precisely. And what I was just going to say before you jump in and kind of like give some clarity is that the work you did with polar bear, like there's a difference between like rattlesnake training, right? There's a difference between rattlesnake training and like what you did with polar bear, right? Rattlesnake training is I see, I scent, what is it? I see, scent, I guess you can't taste. I'm trying to think if there's any other, what do they do? And hear a rattlesnake, right? And then high level aversion and then move the dog away so the dog learns to avoid that high level pressure by moving away anytime it notices that stuff. But that's not what you did with Polar Bear. You didn't teach Polar Bear that he couldn't look, see, smell, or hear a horse. What you taught him to do was not be a dick. Sorry. Yeah. So let's be really clear that there's a big distinction. And what happens was that he connected his behavior to the correction, not the horses, right? His behavior towards the horses is what garnered him the correction, not being around the horses. And if I'm not mistaken, Laura, you can help clarify for me if I am. But was it Elizabeth? Was that her name? Eleanor, right?
Yeah. Eleanor.
Eleanor, she would take him out and go on horseback rides with him around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All it was that high level correction wasn't to make him so horses were like the worst thing ever, like rattlesnake training. You know, like Sean says, you do that so that they even like the smell of a rattlesnake causes them to jump in the air, like they got corrected by an e-collar. I've seen that. Or Polar Bear, actually, there's a picture of him up in the air, like mid-air with his mouth like, like screaming. And she told me that there was no rattlesnake. It was just the scent. And he wasn't being corrected. He was just reacting to how he felt when he was corrected. Like that's how high the stem's supposed to be. So anyway, the thing with the horses is I was correcting that impulsive behavior towards the horses. But it's almost like once they got that out of their system, or once we got it out of his system, then everything, he was able to be around them and be fine. But it just took that first initial kind of don't you dare to get him to, to not react and be silly like he was.
Yeah. So think about it. I'm sorry, what's her name? Is it Crystal? No,
it's Amy.
So Amy, think about it like I'm just making myself a little protein shake here. So think about it more about creating an inhibition about behavior than an inhibition about a species. If that makes any sense to you, hopefully I'm not getting like too fancy pants for my own good. But really, like what a lot of people get caught up with is that if you correct, like even with like dogs, correcting dogs around other dogs for, untoward behavior, reactivity, that they won't like dogs or that they won't be able to play with dogs or anything like that. And that's not the case. It's just saying that behavior, that choice, that emotion, that attitude, that emotional state you're in, that behavior you're doing currently is not allowed. And there's a commensurate correction or consequence for that choice and for that behavior. And so that's all that really went down with Polar Bear. And now, she was able to, Polar Bear is no longer with us. But when he was around, he was able to go out and be around the horses and be a total gentleman. The whole thing is why? Why was he able to be a total gentleman? Because the thing that was so exciting and fulfilling for him, all this like crazy prey drive stuff, it was so rewarding. And then what Laura and Eleanor shared was a consequence that was way higher than that reward. And so he adjusted his priorities, right? Does that make sense? And if you don't use high enough consequences, you'll never get the priorities adjusted. But once again, that doesn't mean that causes him to be terrified of horses. It makes him go, I don't want to do that thing with horses, because that's when the bad stuff happens. Hopefully, did I cover it, Laura? Is that
That's great. So basically the answer to the question is do what I talked about with Polar Bear. If he's like going to grab onto the horse's tail, that's a dead dog,
Yeah, nail him. Like highest levels, nail him.
Yeah,
right?
Nailed at the highest level. And then it's just like when we work on jumping with dogs, we'll hype the dogs up like, oh, play with them. And then they jump and we correct. And then we go right back to playing. Like, look, playing is cool, but jumping up is not cool. So it's the same thing, like running at the horse, going to grab onto his tail, not cool, right? But just being around the horse or maybe trotting next to me on a trail when I'm trotting on my horse, whatever, those things are all fine. But any of the I would correct at the highest level at the first time the dog goes and looks at the tail or looks at the horse in that way that you know the signs. So as soon as you get that first look, that's when you want to do it.
Yeah. And just to build off of that, like when we correct this, hopefully this will give a good context. When we correct a dog that's dog aggressive or nasty with another dog, so they're usually muzzled and they've got an e-collar on and it's a high level correction if they need it. But then we instantly put them back around dogs because we want to make sure that we create this distinction that it's about your choice and your behavior. It's not about your proximity to dogs. That's the problem. Not the dogs around you that's the problem. It's the choices you're making. And that's the same thing they did with polar bear. So if you keep it real clear like that, I think you'll find that you can still have him be able to do that. He may be apprehensive. Your dog may be a little bit like for the first week, maybe like, no, you know, I'm not sure. But time will clarify for your dog that that's not the problem, because what you'll find is I'm by these horses and nothing bad's happening. The only time it ever happened was when I was being a wiener. Right. That's not my confession. That's polar bear's confession.
All right.
All right. What do we got, lady?
Question number 5.
Question number 5. Cue the music.
It's on. Crystal asks, it's like a crazy thing. All right, Crystal says, thank you for answering my question last week. I agree. Oh, every time it does this, if I switch applications, it takes it away from me. It never used to do that.
What do you need?
The question. Okay, Crystal. Crystal says, thank you for answering my question last week. I agree with the whole breed prong usage on sight hounds, but I just want to ask just in case. My question is, what is the quality difference between the Educator Mini versus the Pet Trainer 330 or other generic e-collars? It seems that other than price, the difference is the Mini has a tapping sensation similar to vibration, while the other has 4 levels. It seems like you get what you pay for, but I haven't really found an in-depth explanation why trainers recommend the expensive e-collars, nor do I really understand what makes the Mini better than the cheaper e-collars. It's not that I don't believe in e-collars, but I haven't found a detailed explanation about the differences between. How does the technology craftsmanship on the more expensive collars make it more expensive?
Well. Crystal, you've come to the right place for clarity. Crystal clear is where we want you to be. So I'm not familiar with, I can't remember what you say, the Pet something 300.
Yeah.
And it's not Pet Safe, it's Pet Roaster or something like that, 300. So there's major differences, Crystal, major differences. And I'm not saying that like talking down to you. I'm just saying like it's that dramatic, right? So I know a million trainers, and I'd say 99.99% of those trainers are using e-collar technologies remotes. Some are still using Dogtra, which are also similar in a lot of ways. The primary reason is that they're highly, highly, highly adjustable and customizable to your dog, your dog's specific or particular sensitivity levels, but also when your dog's mind vacillates depending on stimulation, on whatever issues or problems or training things that you might be dealing with. I think you said that the one that you're looking at has like 4 levels, right? And if you haven't done a bunch of this training, you might be like, so, excuse me, what's the big deal? 4 levels, I have some variation. I can go low, medium, high, higher. It's huge. Maybe I kind of wrote this out as like maybe a good example that might be able to be helpful, right? Imagine like you like to take baths, and imagine your bathtub had 4 settings, right? What are the chances of those 4 settings being perfect for you? I would venture to guess that every one of us has a special like temperature that feels really comfortable and really good for us when we're taking a bath, right? And that's why bathtubs don't have like a few increments. They have an infinite amount of increments as you turn the dial to find exactly what suits you. And if you kind of think about it that same way for e-collar stuff, it's even more so because you're teaching, right? And we're using pressure often to teach what we want dogs to do, right? So I want a dog to sit. And say I've trained him with a leash and prong or treats, and now I'm starting to pair it with an e-collar, and I want him to sit. And so what I do is I'm doing escape training, which means I press and hold the button at the level the dog cares about. I give him guidance into that position. When his butt hits the ground, the button goes off, right? And that would be like an escape training moment, right? The dog escapes the sensation by completing the exercise. The problem with the 4 is that 1 might be completely unrecognizable. 2 might be recognizable, but not motivational. 3 might cook his goose. 3 might be like, holy crap, I can't even sit because I'm so freaked out. And 4 might be completely unusable, which it probably is. So, and then there's even others that are, 7, 8 levels, things like that. All of those are extremely challenging to teach fairly with low stress levels and have dogs feel comfortable and happy in the training. So there's major differences in these different collars. And to be honest, the collar tech collars, off Amazon are like $180. They're not expensive. I've seen Pet Safe collars and other, like cheapies that are plenty pricey. And I'm telling you, for the money, the bells, whistles, flexibility, and customer service you get with this company and their products is is it off the chart or off the chain?
It's off the chain.
Off
and
the chain.
Off the charts.
Yeah. And maybe it's off the charts too. And so the whole thing is like, I'm working with this Dobie here, right? And so his first perception level of the e-collar was like 4 or 5. But he wasn't motivated when we were teaching him heel and sitting down at 4 and 5. He felt it, but it wasn't enough, right? I was able to go 1 more up to 6, and 6 was really valuable for him, right? Like the teeny tiny, most of us couldn't even tell the difference. Now, if I had your collar or that collar you're talking about with 3 or 4, and I pressed at 2 to get him to sit, and it was either way too hot or wasn't enough, my next choice at 3 is absolutely not going to be a good fit. So those can be useful. I don't want to go too long in the tooth with this, but with really strong ass working dogs, like if you've got like just a hardcore Mal or a hardcore Shepherd or one of these dogs that are just bred to be tough as nails, you've got more flexibility and get away with less variables and less variations. But with typical pet dogs, they're so much more sensitive that if you start doing that, you'll turn it into a very negative training experience. You might get a dog to shut down, who doesn't want to work. You might get a dog who's panicky, who's so stressed he can't process information and can't even succeed. So let me make sure that I've got all the different stuff. So it's got, we still there? Good. So we've got like on the mini educator, you've got Nick, which is just a really quick tap. You've got continuous, which you can also tap, which is what we use, but you can also press and hold it for like up to 10 seconds. You've got a vibration button. You've got a lighting mechanism that also lights up the receiver for the dog. Both are waterproof. And it's just it's like apples and oranges. So if you gave me a dog and you said, like, when clients come in and they've bought a bad collar like that, and I call it a bad collar, we won't train the dog on it. So they come in, they're like, yeah, I've got this collar. We won't do it. And it's not because we want to make money off them. I don't want to be unfair, harsh, or highly stress out the dog. It's just not right. And then the other thing goes that, like, when you do need higher level pressures to like correct for something like running after game or something like that, you want to find the right level. So think of that bathwater analogy. You're looking for what fits right to help your dog learn to where he's motivated, but he's not freaked out and stressed out. And you just can't get that with the cheapy collar. So Laura, anything else you want to add to that? Did I cover?
You got it all.
Did I cover her question though? Like, Because I know sometimes when I get off on the
just what are the differences? Like, why would she buy a more expensive collar? I think that's you covered it, you know, pretty well.
The thing is, like, if e-collar technologies collars were like $400 for a mini educator, I'd be like, yeah, it's hard. They're cheap. $180 is cheap for a tool that's going to help you like have an off-leash dog and train them to the highest level. I mean, 99% of the dogs that we train are on their cheaper collar, and I don't mean cheap and bad quality, but they're less expensive quality. They're less expensive collar. Yeah. So I just think it's a jamming product. When it came out, everybody was like, woohoo!
Yeah.
And every dog trainer in town went to it. So that's really telling. So hopefully that clarifies. Hopefully that gives you some good information.
All right. Okay. Question number 6.
Yeah.
This is from Colleen.
Hi, Colleen.
Colleen, she asks a lot. She kind of, I'm going to paraphrase her question a bit. So she said she apologizes for it in advance because it's long. But basically,
can I interrupt real quick and just tell you what I did answer so you know?
Sure.
Right. So I only answered 2 questions. And one was she's having problems with her dog sitting and downing at a distance.
Yeah.
And closing that distance. And number 2 is how do we determine which levels are appropriate levels for the dog?
Okay. Cool.
Just so you know, so you can get into.
Yeah. So Colleen, maybe you can add the 3rd one because that one gets into a lot more about the growling. Add that next week, and we'll answer it next week.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's a longer thing. Okay. So Colleen basically says she has a 2-year-old dog that was really giving them trouble, like safety-wise, like running away. They've got acreage in Alberta, so they've got, take them like an hour to get her back. Finally, they found our videos online and they got the DVD, which was awesome. And then they got an educator mini and taught her recall and all this stuff. So really cool. Now they have a rock solid recall and dog that can spend all day outside, never stray very far. So she's really happy. Great work, Colleen.
Very cool.
So here are her questions, but they're both small. So the first part is, I know this has been answered before, but she has a solid recall as well as all the other basics. The problem is when I ask for a sit or a down and she's at a distance, she always comes to me first and then does the sit or down. I've tried using high and low stim to stop her and say the command again, but she just comes faster. She seems confused. And then the other part is, how do you determine what level of stim, not a number, just working versus higher level to address issues on an e-collar trained dog? Serious things like, growling at kids are obvious high, but I use a low for a break and a heel. How do you use the pressure of low and the correction of high? Our dog is nervous, anxious, timid, leans against you when you try to pet her, etc. So, make sense?
Makes sense.
Cool. Can you make your screen brighter so your face is brighter?
I don't know. I think we're losing light here, my dear.
I know, but if you make your screen brighter, it'll put light on your face.
How do I do that?
Top left-hand corner of your keyboard, there's 2 little like suns. And click the sun on the right.
It's all the way up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Let me see. How's that?
Nope.
The night light out in Georgia?
Got to boogie through these because you're getting super dark over there.
Yeah, sorry guys. Damn. But I'm here like in full commitment, full spirit. All right, let me jump through. Are you petting Cujo over there?
No.
Okay, looks like you are. Okay, so here's the thing, Colleen. So your dog hasn't been taught, like dogs are very like specific, the way they problem solve and the way they understand what's been taught to them. And so what hasn't happened for you guys is that you haven't taught your dog to sit at, like, you want your dog to sit at a distance. You want your dog to down at a distance, but your dog is like, all I've ever done is sit and down at your feet. So it's confused, right? So this is where like a little bit more fancy pants stuff comes in. I don't even teach a ton of this, to be perfectly frank, because our owners aren't looking for like fancy pants stuff usually. But when I did want to work with the dog and get it to be able to do that stuff, it's a fairly easy thing. And now if you've got somebody to help you out, it can be even more helpful. But basically, you want to back tie the dog. So you can go to the park, you can go, park's good because you can like back tie them to like a pole, do it somewhere where there's not a lot of people around, right? And then don't go a million miles away, but start like, start just a couple feet away, ask your dog to sit, right? And your dog is tied, so your dog can't come to you, and then correct for the sitting. Now, if the dog struggles with it, you can come in and you can help put him into the sit, right? And then you're gonna back away. I would release them, and then I would go through the process again. And I would basically, the back tie prevents closing the distance and starts to create a distinction that, oh, I'm getting a sit command and I'm not supposed to go forward. And the way to turn the pressure off is by doing it right here. And you can do the same thing with the down. So you need to back tie the dog. You need to be patient. Like I said, if you've got a second person that can help you out, then the second person can be like, kind of like, say you've got your dog on a 5-foot like leash and you're a little bit further away and you say sit and the dog doesn't sit, the dog is confused, the dog is struggling. You can repeat the command, have somebody walk over, put the dog into a sit, right? And then you can say down, and then if the dog is confused, you can have somebody come over and help. When I was doing it, if I remember right, for most of that stuff, I was doing it just on my own. And if you've done enough patterning of sitting down, like if you've really done a bunch of patterning, the dog knows the command, they're just getting overridden by closing the distance. So if you've done a lot of patterning with it, especially on e-collar, whether it's at your feet or not, once you back tie the dog, just be a couple feet away. Like I said, start short, ask for that sit, and ask for that down, and you should find that your dog is able to give you that stuff without closing the distance. He might try to close the distance, but eventually he's going to find out that it doesn't work. And then you get farther away, farther away, farther away. And when that gets really, really good, then you can leave the line on and you can start going through the process once again, like at a distance, a small distance, and then ask for the sit, ask for the down, and then you could recall the dog back to you and then take him back to the spot, but put him in a sit and then walk away and then ask for the down, all that good stuff like that. Hopefully that makes sense, right? That's kind of the process. The process is just back tying to where the dog can't make the mistake of closing the distance. They just don't know what to do. They think they're supposed to do that, and the back tie prevents it. And then you add pressure with the command, and the dog goes, oh, wow, I got to lay down right here. And then they start to get that distinction and that clarity. Oh, that's how that works. So that's the answer to that one. And then as far as like levels, I got to boogie through this because I'm getting dark here. Levels are really about like what's valuable for the dog. We try not to nag dogs. So if you're using like 6, like here's a good example. So I'm walking with Adobe today, I'm walking with Rudi, and 6 is marvelous for him for like for healing, really nice. It's a great reminder for him if he doesn't auto sit, right? It's enough to motivate him, but it doesn't freak him out. Now, if dogs are walking by him and barking and causing trouble, 6 doesn't matter. So then I go up and I try and find a level quickly that matters enough for his ears to go back and for him to look at me, and I say no simultaneously, right? So I always say the no, right? So heel with pressure means position, where I want the dog. No means stop looking and getting, having those naughty thoughts and that kind of stuff like that. So let me see if I've got any other stuff. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to when we've said it several times, kind of a theme in this broadcast is that we can either nag our dogs with low levels and constantly say like heel, 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 or down, 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 or don't look at that dog, right? Which is what a lot of people do. Or we can use some higher levels and say like, I don't want you to do that anymore, and I want you to do your best work, dog. So, and I mean that lovingly, not like dog, but that's something that distinction wise you really need to make. And so the clarity about like how that works is the practice and watching your dog. Just let your dog tell you what works. If you're saying heel at 6 and you have to say it 100 times while you walk through the park, it's probably not a valuable level, right? If you have to ask your dog to recall back to you 5 times, you're probably not at a valuable level. If you have to ask your dog or say no for looking at another dog, and you have to say it 20 times, you're probably not at a valuable level, right? So that's kind of the whole game. We're looking for the valuable level, and the only one that knows it is your dog. That's it. Hope you like it.
Awesome.
Down over there. Down. I got to teach this guy down at a distance.
I have a little grape action going on here. All right.
Yep. What you got for me, lady? Oh, look at that. It's your birthday. You got to trim those. Wax job. Okay.
Number 7.
7.
This is from, nice name, Laura. Laura asks,
how do you get your eyebrows so full and fluffy?
my eyebrows kind of look like that anyway. Laura says, hi, Sean and Laura. I love your Q&A Saturdays. Thanks so much for doing them.
Thank you.
I have a 10-month-old puppy, and I've been working on all the foundation work you recommend doing. He's trained on prong. At times, he's a little fearful and reactive. On the place command, sometimes he growls and does soft, low barking. How do I correct for this and make him understand that the correction is for the growling and not just being in this place? A similar thing happens when we're on the structured walk. When he sees another dog, when he's heeling and sometimes sitting, he will start vocalizing. A correction with the prong just makes him vocalize more. I give him plenty of space to make it less stressful for him, but what should I do in this scenario to stop the growling?
Okay, so the other lovely Laura,
yes,
with hopefully not quite as out of control eyebrows, nor a monocle. So how to be clear about like correcting for growling or barking in place is really easy, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to say no and correct for that, right? So your dog's in place and you say no and you tap the button, your dog goes, oh crap, I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. It doesn't mean recall, it doesn't mean leave place, it doesn't mean anything like that. So, and the more that you use no in a more universal fashion, like on walks, for looking at things in a way you shouldn't be looking for, jumps on somebody, or he runs to the front door and acts the fool, or anything that you don't like, say no and hit the button, and your dog will quickly learn that no has a value that means I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, right? And dogs are super smart at figuring out what it is, right? If the dog's laying in place and he's growling and you say no and tap it and he stops growling and the pressure stops, it becomes very clear to him what that correction's for. So if you just, you know, I mean, no is an easy way to do it, but I think that, you know, I'm trying to be really honest and clear here. You know, there's plenty of times where I'll correct a dog even from place for making noise, whining or growling. I may not even say anything, and the dog just knows, right? The dog knows. The dog's in place. Why would he be in his mind? Why would I be corrected for being in place? I'm already doing the gig. He knows
right.
that he's being corrected for doing a behavior. Dogs are so smart. They know that, like, okay, I've deviated. I'm having an emotional thought. I'm in a space mentally that I shouldn't be in, and that's why I'm getting corrected. And I truly believe that dogs put that together. But if you want to make it really crystal clear for yourself, say no, tap the button, and if the dog breaks place, lead him back to place, and then go from there. And that should be fairly straightforward. And then you said there's also problems with on the walk with growling or barking. I would say, like, you know, not for this to be like the firm, like iron fisted dog training episode number 50, but I would go firmer on corrections. Like, for one thing, let me just state this: prong collar may not be the best tool for the walk. So that's always a possibility because we use e-collars for almost all reactivity stuff. So it may or may not be the right tool. I would look very clearly into some of our videos that show how we work with reactivity stuff and show what those corrections look like. Oftentimes they're like firm sideways corrections that are very sharp, and there's a lot of people, like even like trainers that come shadow, that struggle with the mechanics of that. So just because you know your dog's doing something and you don't like it and you want to correct it doesn't mean you're using the mechanics with the prong collar to make it effective. It's very easy to give crappy corrections with a prong collar. It's not a piece of cake, and that takes time. So that's part of it. I think she said she's using space, if I'm not mistaken. That's great news. That's awesome. But correct, I mean, it's almost always the same program. Use space. Cujo, Platz. 9.
9, Cujo.
Okay.
9.
Ooh. He's
Platz.
gonna run away. I like to correct via the internet. Okay, so the main gig, the main goals, the main guys in all this are always the same thing: space, correct early, and correct firmly enough, right? Those are like the 3 big ones, right? So those are things to look at. Hopefully prong collar is the effective tool. Maybe just the mechanics and the timing and the space just aren't quite enough. And then the other part of this would be, what's it look like inside the house? How much freedom does your dog have? How much access does he have to furniture, to your personal space? How much unearned affection or just affection in general is he getting? All of those things could be leading your dog to being in a very bratty mode and giving you a very hard time on walks. And you could be like, man, like, why are we getting such a hard time out here? A lot of stuff happens from the inside. So it's all interconnected. If you don't have the inside world looking good, there's a very good chance you're going to struggle on the outside world of the walk. And like affection, freedom, and access to personal space and furniture are great ways to undermine your relationship and making sure your dog's in a really good, respectful listening mode. So those are my suggestions for that. Cool. I'm kind of on fire, Laura. I think this might be like a really good episode where I'm like, oh, princess, where I'm really laying out the good stuff. Just saying.
You're always laying out the good stuff.
Well, sometimes, you're just firing on all cylinders. It might be the red beans and rice doused in crystal hot sauce.
Question number 8.
Doesn't even want to hear from me.
Alyssa.
Hi, Alyssa.
Alyssa asks, I'm not sure if I'm too late, but quick questions for you guys. I'm a trainer myself, and I operate very similar to your methods. One of my personal dogs, a 1.5-year-old pit mix, has recently been showing some less than desirable behaviors around the crate. He snapped at a guest that I had over while he was in the crate, and then again at me when I was petting him through the wire. He has also charged my other dog while in his crate, barking and hitting the door if she walks past. He's been crate trained since 8 weeks of age. I crate him at night and whenever I leave the house. I can put a hand in to take out a toy or take out his collar and latch and unlatch the door without issue. But if the door is shut and you stick your fingers in there, he thinks they're fair game. He is, of course, fully e-collar trained, obedience. I've been giving him random kennel commands, meaning he must go into his crate and stay with at least 2 paws in it if the door is open until released, to try to desensitize him and correcting for any snippiness. I'm also being strict with him when he's not in the crate. He's almost always working. He doesn't gravitate toward his crate if he has the choice, so I'm thinking it's more insecure than resource guarding. Any other exercises you would recommend that I can start employing with him to have in my repertoire for future clients? Thanks a bunch. Dancing.
I'm dancing. It's catching on. It took me a minute to kind of find my groove, get my dancing shoes on. Okay. So, Alyssa, thanks for the question, Alyssa. Awesome to have trainers on here asking questions too. That's really cool. Appreciate that. That's great stuff. So, so here's the thing for me. We get a lot of this stuff, like in crate stuff. We get a lot of monkey business. And I just wrote a post today. I think it was today or no, it was yesterday, saying you don't need to know, right? And the main thrust of that was that, to be honest, like, yeah, it's cool to know stuff about what's underpinning the behavior, but oftentimes it just doesn't matter that much. I just don't focus that much on it. Not that I'm being naive and just like one size fits all, but like, I just don't hyper focus on, geez, what's going on with him in the crate. I'm not saying you are as well, but that's just a kind of an important distinction I wanted to make. So I wouldn't care if he's insecure, and I wouldn't care if he's being a jackass, right? To me, both, I'm going to handle both the same way. And how's that? I'm going to leave the e-collar on him, and I'm going to use pretty darn high level corrections for the teeniest, right? Now, you can use it for the big stuff, but I want you to use high level correct. This is an old school like concept of mine, which is like high level correction for low level infraction, right? Catch it early and catch it big. So he's in the crate, and you know, somebody's walking by, or the dog or something like that, and you see, right? You just see posturing and staring. Correct. Bang. What the hell are you thinking? Get rid of that crap in my crate, in my house. Do not behave like that. If you hear a growling, same thing. High level correction. Knock that crap off. If you have any of these things that you just described, which to me is just a dog misbehaving and being a jackass in a crate, and not to be like mean or anything like that, but like that's a dog being a jackass in a crate, whether it's insecure or whether it's being a brat or dominant, or this is my land, it's not your land, whatever it is. There's so many different ways to make better choices, and your dog's not making the better choices, and it's up to you to inspire those better choices. So here's the quick lay of the land, right? Make growling, make posturing, make staring, make lunging, make any of these nefarious, ugly activities highly uncomfortable. And no, that's what I'm doing right now. No. So I've got whining over there. So if you make it uncomfortable enough, what'll happen is your dog will find a new way to cope. Now, if your dog's a brat, he'll find a new way to not be a brat. He'll say, this crate isn't mine, and I'm not going to protect it and be a jackass about it. If your dog's nervous and insecure and lashing out, he'll find, I can't do that behavior anymore. It doesn't work for me. I got to find a new way to deal with people walking by the crate. Even if I'm a little uncomfortable with it, I got to do my best stuff. I got to man up and let this go. Let this person walk by. Oh, this is uncomfortable. Usually I'd growl and I'd bark and I'd lunge because it feels so good to channel it out and get it out. But instead I'm going to sit tight and hang. And what happens is, which is something else that I talk about a lot, which is natural counter conditioning. What happens is, once you block that mental state that allows the dog to continuously cycle and engage in that behavior, once you block it, you get the dog, you open the door, you create the gateway for the dog to start creating new feelings, new associations, new perceptions around that environment, around those circumstances, around that context. So the dog that barks, lunges, growls, bites, whatever he does, you block that and you do it with firm enough levels, he's going to find a new way to behave in that crate. And eventually that'll become a default, and you won't have to correct. But right now you got to have the e-collar on, and you've got to be vigilant about it, and you can't pussyfoot around. If you're doing like low level correction stuff like that, like interruptions, you'll do exactly what we were talking about on several other questions in this show, which is management. And what management does is means clock in, because you'll be managing today. Clock in, you'll be managing tomorrow. I mean, it's an ongoing gig, versus ask your dog to do his very best work. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable, laying out a big correction on a dog, especially for our own dogs. A lot of people don't want to do it. I get it. I hear you. But for me, I don't want to live with the dog in that space, and it's not comfortable for the dog to be in that space. So that's it. That's my answer.
All right.
Cool.
Look at you.
Go.
Oh, you.
I'm a little fiery today.
Let's see. What can I put on right now?
God, I'm dark in here.
It's really dark.
Trying to see if I can wonder if I ooh, check this out, Laura. How's that?
Oh, that's much better.
right? I'm a slow learner, but I think
Question number 9. This comes from
what kind of wax do you use to keep your mustache?
Bethany asks. Don't worry about it, Bethany.
Bethany, you're so curious.
Bethany says, hey guys, I kind of have a feeling this question may have been asked before. Hopefully not, and definitely hopefully not by me, because that would be really embarrassing. That's something I would do, Bethany. Maybe it's just a burning question of mine for a while. You recently posted a video of Adobe and NOLA the first day after you were using e-collar and prong. I know you stressed the importance of getting a little bit of foundation work on prong before layering the e-collar. What changes this for you with this particular dog as well as in general with clients that come in? Is it specific behaviors they are exhibiting? Are they already advanced obedience-wise and it's fast to fine-tune them? Or is it time sensitive since you only have him for a week? Thanks, guys. You're the best. Great question.
Bethany. Is that Bethany Davis Wilson?
Wilson Davison, yeah.
I was close. Close, Bethany. Okay, so good question, really. So here's the thing, like for our walk stuff, we used to start off with prong collar. We used to start everything with prong collar. And what we found over the last several years is that e-collar work, we always have a prong collar. I'm trying to think. But yeah. This was a different question. Sorry, I'm confusing things. We always, like for walks, we always have a prong collar and an e-collar on now, right? So unless the dog's just a cupcake and we're just gonna like take it out for a quick stroll on the prong collar and we don't even need to go to e-collar straight away. But 9 out of 10 dogs that we get have got polling, maniacal reactivity issues. So we've adjusted our program accordingly. And so typically what will happen is me or Britt or Laura or Tony, whoever's working with the dog, will start with the e-collar even on that very first session, that very first day, and we'll start working on e-collar heel. And a big reason for that, well, there's a couple reasons. One is that we found it's the softest, easiest, most gentlest way to get a pulling, reactive, out of its tree, highly aroused dog to chill out, calm down, and walk really nicely within a short amount of time. If you don't have the e-collar on, you're really relegated to more kind of like powerful interactions, which can be effective, but they're hard on the dog. And if you're working with the client, it's hard on the client, hard on you. It's just, it's work for us. It's just work we're not interested in having to do unless we're absolutely have to, because we can't use an e-collar for some reason, or, you know, whatever, you know, budget, something like that. But then we would have to use 180s on a prong and stuff. And you can use 180s and they don't have to be like life-changing. But typically, say like you've got an aroused 80-pound pitty and you're just got him on a prong, you're going to be working your behind off and you're going to be correcting your behind off. And what a lot of that will do is just that'll just arouse the dog more. That'll just lift the dog off more. It won't cause the dog to get into that calm, relaxed space. And the e-collar we find really helps do that. So that's the first answer. We go to e-collar and prong for the walk almost straight away. And the prong, as you've seen, if you've seen any of our videos on how to do it, is because it helps give very soft directional support and information to the e-collar, which doesn't give any directional information. So that's that part of it. And then so that's for the walk. And then like, yeah, for a 1-week intensive, time is kind of the essence, right? So I kind of have to boogie along, right? I've got 7 days to get a dog start to finish, work through behavior issues, and also get him off leash trained, which is no small feat. So typically what I'll do, because I've been doing it a long time, I know where I can kind of like, I don't want to say cut corners, because it's not about cutting corners, but it's about like knowing steps that I can leave out without having any fallout, any problems or anything like that. So with Adobe, we did the walk like that on e-collar and prong. And then I started doing sits while I was out on the walk, right? So I'll sneak things in when I can. Come to a corner, gentle leash pressure up. What I'm starting to do is condition the auto sit, right? I'm not even putting e-collar pressure on it initially. I'm just like, come up to the corner. I stop. I apply gentle leash pressure up every time we stop, and the dog goes, oh, every time we stop, I got to sit down. And that eventually starts to become an auto sit. But what I'm also doing is I'm also conditioning the dog to respond to prong pressure for a sit. So I'm kind of like mixing and matching things and making sure I'm doing it in a way that's not blowing the dog's mind. And then I'll occasionally do things where I'll put him in a sit, excuse me, and then I'll let the leash be loose, and I'll walk circles around him, and I'll start proofing him a little bit, because most of these guys, they want to jump out of it. And so I'll start, you know, like getting him more comfortable with hanging tough in a sit, even if he's like nervous about it. And then pretty quickly, I may even start adding e-collar pressure to that sit when I'm coming to the corner, right? So say I'm using 6 like I was for the Dobie for e-collar heel. After I've done several reps of prong pressure to condition the dog about like stopping with me, you know, 4 or 5 reps in, I might start adding less leash pressure and e-collar pressure at 6 and hold, and then give the dog help if he needs it. Once his butt's on the ground, then the e-collar goes off. And so what we started to do is, like, on that very first walk, we've already started to get e-collar heel, and we started to get prong sit, and we've started to get e-collar sit. So we're kind of like putting a bunch of stuff together. And then a lot of these guys come in and their owners have done stuff, whether it's food work or leash work or hand signals or whatever. And so I always like to try and see what the dogs know. And a lot of these dogs come in knowing, like, sit down. They may even know go to bed, may know a different term. And so I try and like feel out and get sleuthy with it, hang on sleuthy, and see if there's any stuff that I can kind of like jump into, right? Like if he already knows down, then cool, I can start pairing it. I'll have the prong collar on, but I can start pairing it with a light prong pressure. If he's not comfortable, I'm gonna do prong pressure alone to teach the down. If he's got a pretty decent down already, I might use light pressure with the prong just to help guide, and then e-collar pressure and start pairing it, right? So if you see, I'm kind of like finding my way through like what the dog knows and what, like, once again, not corners to cut, but what steps I can kind of like expedite in order to move the dog along through the process. So I'm getting kind of long in the tooth here, but typically, yes, we do leash and prong for 3 days in our 2-week board and train program to really like do an adrenaline, like, what do they call that? Not a retreat, but an adrenaline, what is that called, Laura?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're not listening to me.
An adrenaline, I was going to say an adrenaline dump. I don't know. There's no other word.
An adrenaline detox, right? So like doing really slow exercises, things like that with the prong collar really helps the dog do an adrenaline detox. So yeah, so let me just make sure I've got it all covered. Prong knee collar is easier. 1 weaker, got to move a little quicker. Prong sits on the walk. E-collar heel straight away. Did a bit of prong and down, then added e-collar. Some dogs know less. I think I covered pretty much all my notes for you. So that kind of explains that, the hows and whys of why you saw me do some different stuff. But the one big critical distinction is that if you're out working with a dog, especially a big, strong, adrenalized like Pitty or any other dog, don't battle them with the prong. Get an e-collar on and the prong and teach them e-collar heel, and you'll find it so much softer and so much easier on the dog and less stressful, and they'll really work through it pretty quickly. And then as far as being able to expedite the process and get a dog like off leash in a day, that just comes from like being able to read the dog and having done this a lot. I know where I can kind of like how I can push the dog safely and comfortably and all that stuff. So hopefully that helps.
All right.
Cool.
I just got fancy with this.
What'd you get?
Question number 10.
Oh, look at that. Are you doing that with paper?
Yeah.
Oh,
the
cool.
paper app. Yeah.
That's nice. So you're custom making each one of those as we go.
Kenabuda asks.
Kenabuda.
Kenabuda. Oh, let's get me a hat or something. Oh, maybe a pair of glasses. I am a smarty pants, and I graduated from college.
If only she knew what Monsieur meant. Time to get rid of that hat.
Kanabuda asks, I know I asked a question last week and you answered it. Thanks. You made a great point. But I'm going to try another one this week in hopes of getting it answered too. I work at a small college, and I thought it would be fun to take my dog to the football game for a little bit of socialization and stuff. I've never seen her more skittish, nervous, and scared. I think it was way too much stimulation for her. Is this a lack of confidence in her? How can I help her get over this and relax? Did I rush into this much stimulation too fast? She couldn't get out of there fast enough. I had a remote collar on her, but she wasn't even paying attention to it, much less me. Thanks for your help.
What do you think about answering this question, young lady? Oh, studious one.
Me?
Yeah, I'd get out your monocle and see if you can like find the answer.
Well, I mean, I can add to it, of course. Let me take these things off. I can definitely add to it if we can answer it together. Basically, I would say that, yeah, I think that maybe it's a little too quick for your dog. And that's a lot of stuff. So yeah. I have two dogs that are very, very different dogs. I have Hercules, who I would not ever take to an event like that because it would be really uncomfortable for him. But he can be social. It's not that he's not a social guy. It's not like he's Bubble Boy, but I just know that an event like that is something that's way, way, way too much for him. Now, Cujo is a whole different story. He would like bask in that, think it was the best thing ever. So two different dogs, two very different confidence levels. Yeah. And I think the reason I brought up my dogs is just to let you know that you just kind of have to know your dog and read your dog. And it doesn't mean that you can't work on those things to get your dog eventually to be comfortable in a situation like that. But it's definitely going to take work, and it's going to take baby steps. So with something like that, what you would do is you would take her to a public park where there's some people around. There's, get her comfortable with that. And then maybe the next step is an outdoor mall in the area that isn't so populated, and work through that and really get her in the mode of doing commands and things in those places instead of just, hey, let's let people pet you and you hang out and, not all dogs are like that. So if you're hell-bent on making her that dog that can hang out at an event like that, then what you need to do is really work up to it, but also if she's uncomfortable, you need to advocate for her and either have her work in that situation, meaning like put her in a down, no one pets her, no one, all that stuff. But honestly, like I said, I'm just a big advocate for just kind of dogs are, I think dogs are cool with their unique personalities. My dog, like I said, Herc has a very specific thing that he's great with that Cujo couldn't touch, and vice versa. So I think it's cool to really honor your dog. And although we all want the dog that we can take to the football game, we didn't all necessarily get that dog. So, you can work on it, definitely do that. But just know that, just like us, if someone said like, oh, I'm not like a huge party person. So, but if I had a friend who was like, just come on, you're going to love it. I need a friend to go to parties with. I'd be like, okay, well, you can get me used to the parties by, we'll like kind of ease into it. I don't know. I'm not that bad. It's not like I can't go to parties, but do you know what I mean? If she wanted to like ease me into it, it'd be different. But the thing is like, why? If I don't like them, why? And I feel the same way about the dogs. So,
yeah. I think
you can do it.
So those are really, really good pieces of information. Several things you said are exactly written down in my notes. Like, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see it?
A little bit.
Baby steps.
Oh, yep.
Right. So we share a brain, which is awesome. So yeah, I think what you said is really important about like, we all have dreams and aspirations of what we want this like dog life to be like with us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you butt up against reality, and reality is different. And And like Laura said, you have to advocate for your dog. Just because, you know, like would want my dog to be there doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing for that dog. But like Laura also said, you could work up to it, and you might be surprised what you can get if you do it incrementally. So like she said, baby steps. I also have the same thing written down on my notes here, which baby steps are so important. That's how we do all the training here. So no matter what we're teaching a dog, baby steps is like the whole kit and caboodle. Whether it's distractions, whether it's pressure, whether it's anything that might be challenging for the dog, it's always going to be baby steps. That's the nature of dog training. It's the same thing like the nature of teaching, you know, or us learning a new skill, right? It's all about like tiny little steps to where you build progress, and now you're successful. And like that thing that like, you know, maybe when you first started driving, you were like scared to drive. And then maybe you were like, okay, I can drive on like slow, quiet streets.
Yeah.
And like, okay, maybe now I'm ready for the slow lane on the freeway. And then like a year later, you're like, man, you're jamming all over the freeway and making lane changes, and you know, none of it phases you. But like if we threw you right into the fast lane straight away, you'd freak out and you'd be panicky. And then once you're panicky, you're making bad decisions, you're stressed out, you're not going to do your best work. So think about it that way for your dog. So I definitely said yes. Too much stress, too much stimulation, too much challenge, too hard, and no dig on you. I mean, you didn't know, you were given a shot, see what you could make happen, and hoping maybe your dog would get better with it. But your dog's just shown you it's just not quite ready for that level of challenge yet. So let's move slowly, let's move incrementally. Laura mentioned like an outdoor mall and some things like that. A couple of things I had listed were like, hang on a second. A couple of things that I had listed were like Petco. And if your dog's too reactive around other dogs, you could just be like around the front of Petco, or like the front of like a strip mall, you know, and just kind of walk back and forth. It doesn't have to be insanity, but just like where there's people, where there's stuff going on, like find what is your baby step? Your baby step might be the strip mall in your neighborhood, and you just walk up and down it, or the Petco might be cool. A lot of trainers take dogs to, what is it? Home Depot, right?
Yeah.
Or Lowe's. Yeah, I mean, a lot of those like home improvement places allow dogs, at least for the time being, allow dogs in. So it's a really cool opportunity to take dogs to a place that's like a lot of stuff going on, some weird noises, lots of sounds, people in like hard hats and different gear and things like that. But it's not like crazy. It's not like taking them to a construction site. It's like overwhelming. So that would be another baby step that I'd go for, is just kind of build it slow. You utilize some resources that you can to slowly leverage this exposure rather than like the big time explosive. Basically, you went to the World Series and your dog needs to do some serious T-ball first before he's ready for that stuff. So hopefully, Kinabuda, that helps you out. And like I said, don't feel bad about it. And also, it doesn't mean that that's the limit of what your dog can do. It just means it's your limit. It just means it's the limit right now. So if you work on it, I mean, we get dogs all the time whose limitations are gigantic. Owners are like, you could never have this dog in the front yard because it would jump the fence. You could never have this dog around other dogs because it would attack them. You could never walk this dog safely down. We see it all the time, but because we do all this work and build it incrementally, we see all these dogs doing all this stuff that they were supposedly not able to do. So lots of possibilities out there, and I just want you to, you know, I don't want to be negative. I want you to be positive about it, but I want you to also be practical in how you go about building it. So hopefully that helps.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching this fantastic broadcast again.
Yes. So real quick, Laura Morgan, you're headed out to Norway, right?
Yes, I have a billion things to do before then, so I can't even think about Norway right now.
Do I see gray hairs? Do I see gray hairs in here anywhere?
Definitely.
Yes. So we've got to tackle the shoot, which is big time stuff. We've got to tackle There's so much stuff going on. It's a crazy time, but you're doing great. You're rocking and rolling. Pretty soon you'll be out swimming in the fjords of Norway and relaxing, and this will all be just a distant memory. So will we be able to do Q&A Saturday from Norway?
We got to see. We're going to see if I have a strong internet connection, we can do this exact same thing. Yeah.
That would be so cool. Could you do it from the top of a fjord or the bottom of a fjord?
Well, I could do it from Tina's balcony, which is a really nice view.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Yeah. Awesome. All right, young lady. Yes. Thanks so much for doing this and great insights. I like your little notepads. They look great. Your iPad worked great. And you guys out there, thanks so much for watching. Yeah. We always have a good time. I think this was a fiery episode. I think we were like we came with the good stuff. And if I should be struck by lightning tomorrow, I feel confident that a good chunk of our information lives on right here. So knock on wood, no lightning strikes, but we got the good stuff. We got the good stuff documented. So anyways, we're going to split. We're going to get going. We got lots of stuff to do. And love you guys. And we'll talk with you soon. All right?
Yeah, we love you. Wait. All right. See ya. Bye. Bye.